Coming up on today's episode of the SaaS School podcast.
That one we could actually have a go-to-market, which was we knew who the people are, what is the problem that they are solving, and then we could say how do we reach these people. Before that, either people came to us, and when we tried to replicate it on the other side, they didn't give a shit.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's explore how growth, product, and customer success work together across SaaS companies. Welcome to the SaaS School podcast. And here's your host, Abhinav Arora. Abhinav, the stage is yours.
Howdy, good folks. Welcome to yet another episode of the SaaS School podcast. Today, I have with me Satej Sirur. Satej, for the first time, when I heard about you, was in an article when entrepreneurship was still, very new and people would write articles about new companies being formed. So Taxi for sure, exec quit and started out Rocketium.
Taxi for sure Mafia. That was what we were called.
Yeah, Taxi for sure Mafia. I think they actually drew multiple infographics. Okay, these two guys went here, these two guys went here, these two guys went here. That's when I first heard about you.
Yes.
And you guys actually made a DIY software, and Canva didn't do videos back then. And you guys were like the Canva for videos.
That's what we used to say.
7-8 months back, I heard Rocketium again in the news stories. And it was like, you guys raised 3.5 mil, I guess. But now when I checked Rocketium, this had become a platform for advertiser and wasn't making videos anymore. And it was into dynamic creatives or automated creative generation.
It's a little complicated. I'll explain.
But yeah, it's been a fun journey. It's been fun seeing you guys from a distance. But tell me all about you. First of all, say hi to the audience.
Hello. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me, Abhinav.
So what's your journey been like? What's Rocketium up to? What's the Taxi for sure Mafia all about?
Yeah, so back when I was at Taxi for sure, that was my first and only stint in consumer tech. That was, after my journey at Amazon and Microsoft, where it was more enterprise. I'd primarily been a platform and enterprise and software kind of a person. And then Taxi for sure was this sort of blip in the middle, but a very enjoyable blip through the medium of games is really how we started, because the core thesis was that attention spans are getting very short and shorter over time. So the content has to be very engaging and kind of like what we are doing here, right? It has to be something that captures your attention. Otherwise, people are just flicking away. The last 2 years, we pivoted into B2B, specifically working with mid-sized to large enterprises. These are companies, predominantly consumer internet companies who need creative content at a large scale. So a lot of images, a lot of videos that they would need where it's not bespoke. Like this is highly bespoke, right? But you wouldn't have 100 versions of this. But in most advertising, in most content that you would see inside apps, the content is not static. एक ही तरह का नहीं होता. Like you would want कि this is another product, this is another product. Right. The call to action, the button saying buy now, shop now is changing. E-commerce has a lot of that. We are seeing a lot of interest from edtech companies, fintech companies are large customers for us. So the thesis now is the same as what it was before. People's attention spans are short. If a business has to cut through the clutter, if it has to get in front of somebody, you have to do it in a way that is relevant, that is real time, and that is rich.
There's a lot of juicy insights to be pulled out of that. But उससे पहले आपने मुझे कुछ और juicy बताया था. That is Taxi for sure Mafia का क्या scene है?
A lot of people did very interesting stuff at Taxi for sure. We had a very good set of people. The culture was really strong. And also we got to see that company grow from a seed stage company to exiting for a 200 million, which at that time was, I think, the third or fourth highest in the startup ecosystem, right? So we got to experience that. All of us got the confidence that something like this could be done.
Fantastic. Cool. Okay, Satej. Now tell me, GTM. We hear a lot about GTM. Go to market. And I think I've spoken about GTM once previously on this podcast, but a GTM for $100 million or $1 billion company is very different. Their GTM is like, we're already in the US. How do we get to the Middle East? So, they'll set up a GTM team, a salesperson will go there, they'll scout the market, and then they'll be like, chalo, achhi market hai, aa jao, let's machao here. That is one way of doing GTM. Then there is another GTM is when you are evolving from one sector to another. But these are GTMs that are very mature.
Yeah.
This is 1-to-N GTM.
1-to-N.
But there is also a 0-to-1 GTM. That is, you build a product, you find a fit. That is like the product market fit is a very popular word, but it's really you are GTMing and When you GTM correctly, you find product market fit.
That's right.
What have been your learnings from that? But let's talk about these GTM attempts one by one. What went right? What went wrong?
When we were in the consumer kind of a space, there wasn't really a go-to-market. It was more the market coming to us.
Because the demand was so high?
Because the demand was there. A lot of people wanted this kind of software. So hundreds of people would sign up every day, and we used to be like, wow, okay. We used to think that was B2B, and we used to say SaaS mein to itna leads kabhi nahi aata. Like look at, we are like swimming in leads, right? But that really wasn't go to market, because when we tried to flip the script and we tried to go to people and say, look at these hundreds of thousands of people who are using our product, maybe you should use it. That didn't click at all. So that product didn't really add enough value to people.
But do you have any thesis around why that happened?
Our entire thesis was that you should make a video content not by thinking about it like making a video, but almost like a blog post. So likho kuch text, there will be stock content, piece it together, in and out, right? But people weren't thinking like that. They weren't able to have this sort of coherent video strategy. So somewhere it wasn't really a fit.
I have a question there. In the Canva for video product, there are multiple factors that may have affected. And I feel the product wasn't bad, but it was probably the 30 years old and the 40 years old sitting in the management who weren't able to shift as rapidly. In simple words, were you ahead of your time?
I want to believe so. And that's one thing.
But what does your evidence say? You must have done a postmortem.
So one thing was, whenever I had traveled to the US also thinking that, let me validate in another geography, because we had our largest number of users and paying customers were also from the US. So I met a lot of leaders over there, both B2C and B2B. Everyone said video is extremely important. Right. And then I asked them exactly your question. I asked them for evidence. Can you share with me why it is important? How do you say it is important? How many videos do you create on a monthly basis? Who in your team creates videos? What is your success criterion to know that video is working? They didn't have answers for those. So they were sort of like, it's a checklist item for me that video banana hai. Video ka kuch na kuch hona chahiye, right? And this was maybe 2017, 2018 kind of a thing when we were validating, right? We were somewhere in the middle where you had individuals using our product kind of like they were using a Canva. You've never paid for Canva. I have never paid for Canva. Right. We like the product. The product works. Right. We don't need it often enough. So as an individual, that was the problem. I didn't give a shit about your product roadmap or the CEO wanting to get on a call and say, kya feature banao. They weren't ready to talk to us, work with us to build a better product, because what we had was good enough for them, because it solved a very tiny problem for them. I have to make, some travelogue video. I want to make like this, some blog to video I want to create. For that, it was good enough. And that was on the consumer side. When we went to slightly larger companies, this doesn't have to be a Fortune 500 kind of company, right? Even a mid-sized startup or a slightly larger startup, when we went there, right? There wasn't enough happening internally for them to want to solve a problem with software, right? And so that's when we got some more inbound interest from people asking for our API, which was underlying this video creation product. That's when we realized, these people give a shit about what we do. Maybe we should go into that, right? Again, that was not really go to market. We weren't going to the market. We did go there. So that was our sort of very brief second stint. And that was our start of our B2B avatar, where companies were relying on our API to say exactly the sort of stuff that you are talking about. That I have all of these listings for, let's say, auto, or I have for travel destinations or products. हर एक का video बनाना है. I have a review. उसका मेरे को कुछ बनाना है. Somebody has died, I want to make a memorial video out of it. A lot of such things were coming up. And then we said, wow, there is like so much opportunity. Think about all of the use cases that could be videofied with our API, right? And we are still completely
That's the entrepreneur instinct. Oh my God, massive market again.
And we were grasping at straws at that time. But the good thing was those people really cared about what we are building. The API was a core part of their product, right? But what was happening was we couldn't go to market with that, because somewhere it was, for a lot of these companies, it was an experiment. It was this sort of cool bells and whistle that they were adding to their product, or it was like, maybe it's a new revenue source, let's try it, or maybe it's a cool feature our users were adding. That is how really they were thinking about our product, and somewhere that didn't feel like a very solid foundation on which we could build. So we were iterating on that for a year. We did that. But then when large companies in the consumer internet space came to us and started talking about this problem, which was what I described, saying that, hey, I already have this large marketing team and a design team. हम लोग को already hundreds of images or videos हम लोग करते हैं. You have only video, ठीक है, but image भी करते तो अच्छा होता. So all of those, they needed a place to be made. And today that was made with desktop software. And so when companies came to us and said, this is what what we want to solve. Again, we grasped at those straws and we said, ki, maybe this will work. Let's try this, because it felt like that was a more stable bet. It felt like those workflows already existed. There were already, because this was almost like an internal agency that was there, right? And all of these companies had it. So that was our journey. That was the product we launched. We are coming to about 2 years of that product. And that one, we could actually have a go-to market, which was we knew who the people are, what is the problem that they are solving. And then we could say, how do we reach these people? Before that, either people came to us, and when we tried to replicate it on the other side, they didn't give a shit. Or the kind of people who were coming in, we couldn't really see enough of a pattern to try and replicate that.
Do you think you have product market fit now?
Right now, for this particular vertical, we have a product market fit.
And you can expand later on, but right now you have core conviction to just go deep and market's big enough.
That's right.
In the first many attempts, something that you kept stressing on is we didn't go to market. Market came to us. I mean, on the outside of it, it looks very beautiful that market's coming to you, and you have thousands of users, which you had at one point of time. It's just like you've hacked something like crazy, there's this sucking gravity that's pulling you towards it. You don't seem very excited about it. You're like, those were false alarms.
False positive,
Yeah, false positives in the sense.
Because there were other metrics when you look at it, it's very, very clear that you're not solving a big enough problem for them.
Let's dig deep here.
Yeah.
Why were those positives not good enough? And what was it that you should have been looking for?
So the leading indicator of all of this would be usage. So how often is somebody using the product? So in our case, it would be maybe once in 2 weeks, once a month even, right? How many of those people would end up paying you? Because it's not so much that, if you don't pay me, I don't value you I absolutely value you as a user. But the fact that you pay me shows that you value me enough that you are paying me for it.
So you had a lot of free guys.
A lot of free users were there on the product.
Okay.
And the ones who were paying used to churn out after 3 months. And we used to ask feedback for, tell us that what can we do better? Again, not saying that, we don't like you because you left. Like we didn't do something good enough. That's why you left us. And almost every person who left was saying either the product is too expensive, which at a $19 a month being too expensive means we're not adding that much value, right? Or second, they are saying that I don't need it right now. When I need it, I'll come back, which tells you that this is not even a monthly need to pay $19 a month. So that was what was saying that we weren't making enough of a difference in somebody's life for them to use us enough, for them to pay us once, for them to keep paying us, right? And it didn't feel like that could be a business that would keep scaling. There was another option, which was the Canva kind of a model, right? Which I said, you don't pay, I don't pay, many people don't pay, but they still they're almost $1 billion run rate right now because they have 100 million users. If they pay $1 for one premium download, that's good enough, right? And somewhere we didn't want to build that sort of business. We wanted to be more critical to people's daily workflow.
Got it. So you think you'd kind of built a vitamin, not a painkiller back then?
Definitely.
Is there any deeper meaning to you going to market and market coming to you? Like the way you said it was, you going to market as outbound. There should be significant interest on outbound as well, which you weren't finding. Is that very critical?
So I would say for certain kinds of products, it is very critical. And eventually for every company, it is going to be extremely critical. So there are these canonical examples. People will talk about your Slack or whoever, right? They didn't even have salespeople. Sabke paas hota hai salespeople.
This is the classic myth. People would be talking about, product-led growth aa gaya. Salespeople are dead. We're only going to grow SaaS via product-led growth.
Roughly, we don't actually, but somewhat we compare, people would compare us to a Figma because that's also design software.
Right.
We solve very different problems, it's very different motions, very different price points. Right. And people would say that that's a canonical example of product-led growth, right? Every other time I open LinkedIn, मेरे को Figma का ad दिख रहा है. They also have to do ads, right? You go to San Francisco, you are at the airport. What's the first thing you see? Notion का ad, literally physical hoarding of Notion, right? Nothing wrong with that. You have to get in front of people. You have to create awareness, right? For a lot of products, you get inbound, but if the usage is not high enough, if the conversion from free to paid is not good enough, if referrals are not having, so even in B2B or in SaaS or in enterprise, if you have that sort of virality, if that sort of word of mouth is happening, then great. Like you don't really need to do a lot of outbound. Focus on building, because the way you want to think about it is look at your funnel. कहाँ पे problem है? Do you not have enough top of funnel? मतलब enough people coming to your website, app, whatever, right? Is that a problem? नहीं है ना, तो क्यों fix करो? You have enough people coming. Why do outbound? Outbound solves the top of funnel problem, right? Or are you saying that entire funnel sucks because ऊपर से आ रहे हैं, but nobody converts to paid, or the ones who paid churn out? That was our problem. We had great top of funnel, but by the time people are paying or coming back and referring others, there was nothing. That entire funnel had to be chucked. We had to start a new funnel. That's why I believe outbound is very important, because If inbound is already working, then you don't need to start outbound. Make your product work better, improve your support, all of those things. But if this one is somewhat happening, outbound gives you this sort of additional lever that you can scale faster. You can actually deploy more resources to it. If something is already working, then you can accelerate that much more, right? So the best product-led companies find that extra gear of growth when they put in outbound as well.
Now, this could be various industries as well. This is not just one industry. This could be various industries. But now you're telling me that you have a strong sense of persona that, okay, you could be in any industry, but as long as you could be in travel, you could be in internet, you could be in, financial services, you could be wheresoever. But as long as you have a big marketing team that advertises digitally, you have a fit there, right?
Yeah.
So you serve marketing teams across industries.
We could, but we don't. So,
what do you do?
So when we started this product, it was great that we had some of the largest brands in the company. Most of the apps you would have on your phone would be our customers. So when that started happening, we said, this is great. We could go to everybody. And that's what we did. We went to insurance, we went to banking, we went to like all kinds of companies like physical retail, the people who were doing that, because we said physical retail mein bhi chahiye hota hai, flyer banana. I mean, it was random, right? And so that time it didn't feel random because it was far less random than the year before where we went to mortuary services companies, right? So, so this time it was...
We'd matured by then.
Yeah, we were so mature. But in 2021, we realized that there was one set of customers where the need was extremely pronounced, and it was very, very clear for us that this is where we want to be, right? And what we realized that those were typically the venture-backed companies who had some amount of scale and growth. So there is enough of an audience, enough of that appetite to grow, enough of proven momentum, and the business is not still figuring stuff out, right? And so with these kinds of companies which themselves had achieved product market fit and had achieved some sort of scale, we found that was really our fit. So that's where we said that we can't go after every industry. Let's be more intentional about this, right?
A bunch of these guys are starting out in their careers in startups. They're building startups in SaaS, and few of them are in their second jobs in SaaS. GTM. Not everyone has control over GTM, but the folks who end up having control on GTM, any tips for them?
Yeah, so this one is a bit of this sort of mental model that I share with people. I like to call it slice of work, which is to say that I have 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of fun. As a B2B SaaS company, you are attacking the 8 hours of work. Right? So if you don't know who that person is, whose 8 hours you're going behind, and how much of their 8 hours is your product going to solve, then you don't have a GTM.
Give me an example of what that slice
of
work looks for you.
Payroll,
no,
maybe.
Tell me yours.
For us, it is a marketing person who's running campaigns. It is a designer, a visual designer or a graphic designer, not a UI or a product designer, who would be making these creatives, whether banners or videos that they would be making. So for any entrepreneur who's building a B2B software, you need to be very intentional about who that person is, whose slice of work you're influencing, and have absolute clarity about that. If you have that, you have go-to-market. Then what is go-to-market? Who are those people? What kind of content can I write for them? What kind of ads could I run? What can my sales team do? The channels to reach those people are finite. But not knowing who those people are, not knowing what to say to them, that's where you're...
Is a bigger problem.
Yeah, that's where you die.
Fantastic. This was really good. Thanks a lot.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Cheers.